You're listening to the Vocabit podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 46 of the Vocabit podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company Vocabit. In the last episode, I spoke about a TV character with a wildly extensive and also hilarious vocabulary, Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek. In this episode, I want to dive into another show that I have seen a gajillion ads for, Brave New World. Maybe you've seen them too. Essentially, NBC just created its own streaming service, Peacock TV, presumably an attempt to keep up with Disney Plus and Netflix and everything else. And I actually haven't read Brave New World, which I felt kind of bad about. So I decided to watch the show first to see if I'd like it. And because a lot of students might do something similar, I wanted to give you a quick review. I'm going to tell you right now, I do not suggest any student watch this show. It is shocking how inappropriate it is, considering how many kids might stumble into it. There's like HBO times 5 level nudity in this show. And it's a shame because the premise is interesting, but I can't in good conscience recommend this show to anyone. Brave New World, in case you're not familiar, was one of the first dystopian novels. Dystopia is a play on the word utopia. Utopia is a perfect world. Dystopia is a world that's basically been tried to make perfect, but it's very much not. And the show opens in a really interesting way. A young woman is being called into kind of the society boss's office. He's an Alpha Plus, one of the rulers of New London, and he's very sweetly and professionally chastising her for having a boyfriend. In New London, where everyone is happy, there are no relationships. Everyone is created by a scientist, then raised collectively, conditioned to be a good member of society. And relationships, monogamy, that's a thing of the past. Relationships lead to unhappy emotions like jealousy, possessiveness, secrecy, sadness. Why would you want that? You have a responsibility to the social order not to disrupt it with these negative emotions. And there's a good SAT word they often weave in, solipsism. This is solipsistic behavior, they'll say. And solipsism is basically selfishness times a million. It's when you're so selfish, you practically think you're the only person in the world who matters, and everyone else is just a character in your story. Everyone else is just a player in your game. It comes from the Latin root solus, which means one, S-O-L-U-S. If you're solipsistic, you're the only one who matters, at least in your mind. This root is also where we get words like solitary, solitude, words indicating people are alone. There's only one of them. It was really interesting how they say, this is selfish, solipsistic behavior. Because as the viewer, you're thinking, yeah, it's not good to be selfish. How many times have we told our kids, don't be selfish, you need to learn how to share? And of course, I'm not saying that we shouldn't teach kids to share. It's just an example of good storytelling. It's part of the lure of a dystopian novel to see your reality mixed with theirs, to see your language being used to describe something so different. How relationships become, selfish, private, solipsistic. I probably will read the book after this because, like I said, it's an interesting premise and I feel kind of bad that I haven't read it already. We've had a lot of other dystopian novels in recent years with The Hunger Games and Divergent, but this is one of the originals. But as far as the show, I would not suggest it. I'm pretty sure I've seen cleaner episodes of Game of Thrones. I hate to do this and ever say anything negative because I know people have worked hard on it. A lot of the actors did a really good job. Sybil from Downton Abbey was in it. Love her. The main counselor, Alpha Plus guy, Bernard Marx, was really good. I've liked him since he was in an episode of Doctor Who a long time ago. The actors did a good job. The storyline was interesting, but the no relationships, free love side of things was just taken way too far, way too often. And considering this is a show a lot of kids, students might stumble into, I feel like an honest review is pretty necessary here. I definitely would not just hit play on this show and leave it with a student. You can maybe use clips of it, but this is not just a press play and walk away kind of show.